Hello and welcome back. This is Marcus Brown with ChessFrog OmniVersity. I have two guests today. Guest number one, Mr.
Daru.
Guest number two, Mr.
Elam Israel.
Elam Israel. Gentlemen, are you both originally from Flint? Let's start with you, Mr. Drew.
No, Detroit.
You originally from Detroit. What part of Detroit?
Southwest side.
Southwest side. I used to stay over there on Dexter and Joy Road for a little while, but I'm originally from Joseph Campo in 94. Chain Gang, Earl Flint's, and all them.
I was only there until I was about 5, and then I went down to Romulus, Michigan.
Romulus.
Yeah.
What's going on in Romulus? You got factories there?
At the time I was there from 5 to about 14. I had no idea about what was going on.
You wasn't working. You wasn't doing no paper route. Wasn't working at the factory. Wasn't slanging.
None of that. The first job I had was pulling nails out of boards, wood boards that were flooring.
All
Tongue
right.
and Groove.
Where was this at?
Right there in the area. It was a big old pile, and we were pulling nails out like 2 cents a board or something like that.
They were saving the boards, not the nails.
Right.
Mr. Israel,
Yes,
where
sir.
are you originally from, sir?
Yappa dabba doo. I'm a Flintstone.
You are a Flintstone. Let me ask you a question. Flint today.
Mhm.
What was the best thing about Flint coming up?
When I came up in Flint, man, party and General Motors.
What was the hangout spots back in the day? Give me some names of some clubs or some spots to be at.
Well, when they let me off the porch, we had, let me see.
You went to church every Sunday and YMCA and school meetings and so forth. You wasn't hanging out like that.
I told him the other day, and I shocked him. I says, I spent a lot of time. Both my grandfathers were living at the time, so I was kind of split between Eli and William. And
Okay.
one was a Muslim, one was Christian.
Well, that got to be fun.
Oh, man, what you talking about? So we had a good time. And then my granddaddy told me when I was 8, he said, hey, because I asked him about this black book that was on the coffee table. And he said, be careful. He said, don't get top heavy. And he scared me when he said that.
Was it the Quran? Was it the Quran?
It was Bible.
It was the Bible.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so
My daddy had a little red book. Had Miles' name on it.
And so, he scared me. Top heavy. I didn't know what that was. 8. So, I backed off. So my next great decision was to start listening to my big brother.
And this is back in the days in Flint.
That's about
We're
8.
going to get more into that.
Okay.
Today's topic is going to be education. What needs to change in American education? We're going to kick off today's show with another poem, and then we're going to get right into discussing education, what needs to change, what needs to stay the same, what is vital, what are our memories of it. But we're going to start off with prayer of the urbanite. And as I walk, run through the valley unblessed, as I stalk the dark alley ghetto dressed, as I pimp through the city in contemporary contempt with its insanity, as I hustle in its bustle, as you stand entranced in awe of my defiance of law, I shall fear no evil plots or devil cops. Urban or suburban, the rules are for fools. I am the urban knight, and I am the baddest and saddest thing in sight. In the neo-civil Metro Valley and the Skid Row hellhole jungle alley, I am the urban knight, drinking 40s under streetlights. I dance and prance till dawn, cuss, fuss, and fight after dusk, a wild child till death makes me gone, leaving nothing but ashes to ashes, cracked dust to dust, memories of gunfire blasts, children born of loveless lust. I am the gangbanger, crack cocaine slanger, ghetto child mothered by poverty and fathered by anger, produced to be wild, hope smothered by the city, and not bothered by my languor induced chemically. I am the living by my I am a living by the trigger. a street runner, soon to be prisoner. I am the non-suburban, non-white. I am the urban knight, and my chivalry is based on poverty. Whether I am depraved because I was deprived, or deprived because I was depraved, I am. And damned if I don't fuss, cuss, and say, Amen. All right. American education. What's in it for us? The history of American education for us? No. There were times and places in American history where the black codes were written specifically so that if someone caught reading would lose a finger. If they got caught reading, they could lose an eye, or they could even lose a toe. Sometimes they would even lose their life if you were caught reading, teaching others to read, or caught in possession of writing instruments in different parts of the South. Education was not part of the American curriculum for us. They did not want us to read. We could write our own getaway passes. Just like you had a pass in school, back in the day, we used to have a pass to move around this country, to move around the county. Oh, I got permission from my master. I got a pass here. And it'd be signed all nice and neat. We live in a world today where they want to get rid of cursive writing. And you want to know why? Because it creates a hidden language for certain people to read, and others not to read. They want to keep some of our people uneducated or minimally educated so that they can't distinguish what politicians are saying. And they'll fall for the okie doke every time. You give me somebody that's educated, they're not going to fall for the okie doke. They're not going to believe everything that's said. They're going to be more willing to do research on their own and say, you know what? I don't know about that. I'm going to go find out something on my own. Gentlemen, you have an opinion about anything I said or about education in general?
Elam speaks. First of all, we have to realize that history repeats itself in every culture, in all the historical books that have been preserved. The conquering nation has did and devised every conceivable method to stay in power. Okay,
history is written by the victors.
The books, yes.
Okay,
and they burn the others.
They burn books and they keep the books they want to keep. All right,
yeah,
I can agree with that.
The key to wisdom is honoring your creator. Okay, who will put knowledge in your head, no matter where you're at or what you're doing. Okay. But the bottom line, our country, like any other country, and what a lot of people must give America credit for is they're so young. Okay.
So America is so young, or the people themselves are so young?
No, America. America is one of the youngest nations on the planet. And what you have here is a baby with a loaded gun.
Okay.
So the other day, a 2-year-old and a couple other people, they either killed somebody, injured somebody, or killed themselves because they didn't know how to handle the firearm, a lot of power. Okay. And America is very young. And most of the dynasties that we accept historically, China, Africa, not Africa, Egypt,
the Greeks, the Romans,
Rome, yeah. See,
the British, the Spanish.
Those were at least a minimum of 1,000-year reign. Okay, America ain't nowhere near close to that. Okay. So what you got is a baby with nuclear weapons prancing through the planet and dictating orders.
Mr. Giroux, what do you think about that?
I think that he's just about hit the nail on the head as far as the country being as young as it is and having the power that it has, because it was given to spread itself around the world with that power. In the first, from its beginning, coming from Europe, having been granted the ability to take any and every other culture into its grasp and subjugate it to its, domination.
Okay. We've hit on a number of topics that come back into education, but let's see if we can bring them together. America, in general, as a founding nation, it was started as a corporation. It was here to make money. People were sent over here to make money, or they were sent here as prisoners, just like in Australia. You got in trouble, you could face the rope, or you could face going into America and becoming a settler over here. You could come over here as an indentured service and pay whatever tab, and that's how the original system was started. Then they tried to enslave the Indians and found that, hey, that's not working because the Indians could just run on back with their people. And plus, the Indians had not been exposed to a lot of the diseases that Europeans carried. So they were dying off left and right. There were millions upon millions. The greatest genocide that's never talked about is the Native American genocide. I mean, throughout the Southwest, you had millions of Native Americans. You had millions of people living in Mexico. And then all of a sudden, almost overnight, within 50 years, all these people are gone. How did this relate to education in America, especially for black folk? We talked about the black codes earlier, where there were laws created that specifically said African Americans are not to be taught how to read and write. You've also had exemplars in this country of situations that were so nasty and diabolical, it's almost hard to believe that people did this stuff. Let's go back. Let's put blame where blame belongs. For over 700 years, black folks held down Spain. Spain was not affected by the bubonic plague, black plague, the same way the rest of Europe was, because this Moorish, Islamic, African people that controlled Spain practiced different sanitation, different cultural things and whatnot. Back then, Europeans actually believed. They didn't believe in that cleanliness was next to godliness. They actually believed that you're supposed to leave that filth on you, and that it was a gift from God that protected you. All that filth and funk and whatnot. These people
sleeping with their animals and everything else.
Not only sleeping with their animals, but they didn't mind rats. They didn't mind mice and whatnot. And it was the rats that would wind up carrying most of the plague, bubonic plague,
black plague, red scarlet fever, and scarlet death, or whatever it was. Yeah.
Now we bring the popes in. The popes believed that a lot of stuff was mumbo jumbo and voodoo and crazy magic that black people were doing. They would take a fish bone and they would stick you with a fish bone, and that would create something called inoculation. Europeans didn't believe that. You stick somebody that's been already poisoned or contaminated with that fish bone, then stick somebody who hasn't, they'll get a lesser degree of it because they're getting such a tiny amount of it.
And then they get
now, this is not the complicated inoculation that we know of, where they take needles and they process this and process that. Right. But it was what they had at the time. There are sciences out there.
Make you immune to it.
Right. But there's a lot of science out there. Birth control comes from Africa. A lot of other medicines, aspirin and everything else, this stuff that they said all these guys are in the woods building this stuff, it was just a difference in culture and a difference of recognizing or acknowledging what science was. Okay. European science might be different than African science, might be different than Chinese science. And some of the stuff that the Chinese do from their diets, their this, that, and other thing, some of it's working for them. And Western world has said, we're going to accept yoga, we're going to accept this. Mm-hmm. They do the same thing with other cultures. They'll take what works and leave behind what doesn't apparently work. There was a pope by the name of Pope Nicholas V. Pope Nicholas said, in one of his papal bulls, it's okay to enslave Africans and non-Christians as long as you're bringing them to Christ. As long as you're bringing them to the Holy Father. As long as you're bringing them right with God, it's okay to enslave them, torture them, take their children, rip them apart, do all this other crazy, heinous stuff. And that was the world we live in. Now, originally, a lot of people have a view of ancient history that all societies were, quote unquote, homogeneous. That if you went to England, all you saw were white folks. If you went to China, all you saw were Chinese. If you went to Africa, all you saw was Africans. In actuality, people have been moving around for years and years. Rome was a Neapolitan society. You had black folks, you had white folks, you had Asians, Indians, you had all different types of folks moving around ancient Rome.
Amen.
Same thing is true in England. You hear about black knights and black this, black that, and the other thing. There were actually black folks moving around that becoming parts of royal families. If you look at the pictures that Putin just put out, Putin put out all these pictures of guess what?
Black.
Of black Madonnas.
Royal.
Yes, sir.
And
You want to chime in, Mr. Israel?
Yes. Let's just kind of condense a little bit. Now, Babylon, Greece, Assyria, Rome, and I forgot that. But the major world dynasties. Okay. A nation in power influences others. And this kind of color thing that America has that is bad.
Oh, that was created. That's
I'm gonna
that's
bring this
another
on.
another part of the education system.
I'm gonna bring this on. There are certain segments in every culture, and what you have to realize is not to get distracted. Okay, you have a positive influence in the earth, and you have a negative influence in the earth. We shouldn't spend too much time talking about the weak. Let's talk about the powerful. Let's talk about the one who grows the children.
We have to have a knowledge base, though, because you have children out there, and when they look at television, they see a white Santa Claus. They see white history. They see movies and films and television that has all these white folks going on adventures and doing this and saving the world and back in history.
Your
Christopher
child
Columbus
can
doing
live
this,
without
and
a
they
TV.
They can, but they're still going to be exposed to Western culture. The Western mindset says
the Western mindset does not include black people.
I think
it doesn't. White is right, might is right. That's the Western mindset. But previously, you had Shakespeare writing about Othello, who was a Moor in Italy.
Michael Jackson said he saw Mama kissing Santa Claus, and he sure wasn't white.
That might be a fact.
Okay, like I said, if you spend a lot of time talking about negative, you're going to get negative. What we need to do is concentrate on family. Now, a lot of people disagree with me, but there's the census in 2020 said there was 8 billion plus people on the planet. We all one family. Now, sometimes cuz or this brother or that brother gets it twisted and, pride and different things, and they cause
Well, you got
problems.
beef inside of a family. Me and my brother had beef last year, and we got serious with it.
Well, see, let's not focus on the criminal.
Well, we're not. I'm just talking about people in general. It's human nature sometimes to want to separate yourself, or it's human nature sometimes, which isn't pretty part of human nature, to want to be better than somebody else, or to have jealousy and envy. All those deadly sins fall under human nature.
That is the problem. Let us concentrate on the positive. There is but one who has all power. You name him whatever you want. I say Alhamdulillah first, and then I'll say Hallelujah, giving credit to the original languages. But the bottom line is that we should not be talking about Cain slew Abel. Let's talk about Abel being the high priest, offering an excellent sacrifice to God. It pleased God, and God does great things for those who commit to him. And if we will focus on...
We're going to have to do another show that focuses on the religious aspects of this.
This
but we
is
got to
education.
jump around to the secular also.
This is education.
I know it's the original education was religious.
No.
There's actually a black Bible with selected passages just for us.
Let's not do the black-white thing. Let's do the positive thing. Let's focus on education.
Well, this is education. If we talk about history, ugly and pretty, it gives an insight to children. Sometimes children have a low self-esteem. I'm black and we don't do anything. When they did that test back in the 1950s, they brought out the black dials, they brought out the white dials. These black kids had been so scarred already by the age of 5, already scarred to hate themselves because of what was presented to them in society and in culture. That's not right. We need to do a better job presenting that positive to our children. I agree with you on that.
I was born in 1955. I didn't have no problem. Now, in the 60s, okay, our children, our culture was so strong based on the education of the family. Now,
See, now we're from different generations, because I can tell you that the 60s sucked from my perspective. It might have been a boom time for you, but
Okay. Oh,
all right, go
let
ahead,
me-
sir.
let- what about when was it Henry Ford that came in and introduced a curriculum that said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers,"
That's what we have right now.
and that's what we have right now.
If you look at a
And-
factory, a prison, and a school, guess what?
And the military.
They all look alike. They're all controlled by bells. They're all controlled and have a sorting function
I'll
inside
tell
of
you
them.
when to think, what to think, and then when to think of something.
Gonna tell you when to eat.
You
Gonna
know.
tell you when you can leave. Gonna tell you if you can stay. Gonna tell you
And
that's
what
they
level
do.
you can reach.
Exactly.
the great
The
Malcolm,
factory, the school, and the prison have a lot in common.
the great Malcolm X, they called him Red, Big Red. When he went to their system, he came out better. Okay, he took a dictionary, mastered the language, and came out and shook up the work.
Was that a curriculum sponsored by, quote unquote, the man, or a curriculum that he brought upon himself?
That he took upon.
This is
himself.
what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say within
Who
man,
intervened? Who
with-
intervened?
within man is the innate power to conquer. And
Right.
if we'll listen to who created us, nothing can
I
stop
need
us.
all the children out there to understand this, especially black kids. For thousands of years, guess who ruled this earth? We were building pyramids, and we had dynasties that lasted thousands of years.
Let's
This
go to
little
one,
short-
one point in there.
This little
Let's go
short
to one point in
2,000
there.
year period we got right now, European. Render
When
unto
you-
Caesar what is Caesar's.
My
Right.
brother, when
But
you
let's
say
go to the-
we,
let's-
what
let's
we
go
are
to
we
the
talking
exact
about?
point
We, as in Africans,
that at
were
one
smelting
point,
steel thousands of years ago. We were building pyramids thousands of years ago. You have the Ashango bone that says that we had mathematics. We have the Adinkra that says we had philosophy. We had universities in Mozambique and Timbuktu. We had the richest man in the world, Mansa Musa. We had all these great things going on in Africa, but when you grow up, or when I grew up, we weren't taught that. We watched Tarzan movies, and a white man left as a baby with apes, winds up beating up all the Africans, knows how to talk to the animals, running around in his drawers. What does that tell you about us?
and his best friend was Cheetah,
right,
which taught him to cheat us.
there's a lot of things
But
that impact the way we think.
I still want to say that for eons of time, before any point of separation there was nothing on this planet but one land, and on that land
You
was
talk
one
about the
people,
Pangea concept.
and one people, and that was black people or people of color or whatever you want to call it, melanated people. I'll put it that way, because I'll make one point.
Mm-hmm.
You can get white from black, but you can't get black from white.
I would tend to agree with that. There have
So
been many
anything-
situations where twins, one might be born white, one might be born black, but best believe that Obama was black.
Black, yes.
I'm
All
trying
right,
to.
without going
from that
back to
point,
Pangea,
from that point,
looking
all
at
the
a
way down-
contemporary point
Okay.
of view,
Okay.
looking at contemporary America, we got kids out there,
Mhm.
little Tyrone, little Shaquitha, whoever.
Right.
We need to educate them.
Mm-hmm.
I say that the current school system is doing them a disservice.
Totally.
I'm
say
gonna ask this question: what you gonna educate them with?
we need to teach them. All right, let's look at what's going on right now. Right now, we have a standards-based education, which means we're trying to make all these kids compete with one another. We have this standardized test called the SAT or the MAT or the CAT or the California Achievement. We got all these standardized tests, so kids can be compared with one another. Oh, you didn't score that well on that test. Nationwide, standardized test. Statewide, citywide. We're trying to create a standard, but you know what we don't have? We don't have a standard
For
the school building. We don't have a standard for the teacher. We don't have a standard for the books. We don't have a standard for funding. You got schools that are worse off now than they were pre-desegregation.
Right.
This is a weird thing, and I mention this often
because of the teachers.
My mother and father were born in 1950. Being born in 1950, they benefited from Brown versus Board of Education. My father says he went to school with white kids. My mother went to school with white kids. Guess what? I'm born 19 years after my parents, and guess who I didn't go to school with?
White kids.
White flight in 1969 had taken all the white kids out of Detroit, and we were left with black schools again. And these schools were left to be underfunded. These schools were left to be manned by some great teachers. There were some great teachers.
Okay.
And then there were people that were just collecting checks. I mean, 3:30 hit, they already out in the parking lot, boom, trying to hit the suburbs, trying to get up out of there. And then you got other teachers that were great. So
I'm going to lay this question out there. It's controversial.
Go ahead.
Whose responsibility is it to educate the children?
That is a very good question, because you know what's not in the Constitution? There is no right to an education listed in the Constitution. There are certain socialist things that we do in this country, and the Republicans really don't like it when you start talking socialism.
Right.
But there are certain socialist needs we need. I mean, if we got rid of all the socialism in this country, we get rid of hospitals, we get rid of roads, we get rid of police, fire department, all that will be gone if we got rid of all the socialism. So you don't want to go too far and get rid of everything, throw the baby out with the bathwater. But some people would say that education is not a guarantee.
We were not included in the Constitution anyway.
We were included, but we were included as 3/5 with that first compromise.
That wasn't until they amended the
Constitution.
That's when they wrote up the Constitution. In order to get the Constitution signed by all them southern states was like, hey, you Northerners are trying to pull one on us because you're not letting us count our slaves. That they wanted us to be people there so they can get more representatives. Right. And the North's like, no, we're not going to count the black folks.
Right.
So they came up with the 3/5 compromise. We'll count them as 3/5 of a human being, or count them as 3/5 of a person for census purposes. Mm-hmm. And that way you still get some representatives for those slaves you got, but they won't be represented the same way as a white man. A lot of people don't realize this also. When America first started, it wasn't just black folks that couldn't vote.
Right.
Women couldn't vote. Native Americans couldn't vote. And poor whites couldn't vote. In order to vote originally, you had to be a rich landowner. You had to own land. So if you Joe Blow walking down the street and you work as a sailor or whatever and you don't own land, you can't vote. We had a feudal system where we hoped that those people that own the land and own the factory would look out for our interests and say, oh, we got to make sure they get fed. But you also had a social service back then. Back then, they used to have something called the workhouse. Okay. You got sent to the workhouse if you got in trouble or if you were in poverty. Mm-hmm. If you couldn't feed yourself, they sent you to a workhouse where they would make sure you got some work, and then they would feed you. But they wasn't going to give you no food for free.
Right.
Can I interject real quick?
You can interject, sir.
All right. I've been sitting there. I haven't been looking at my watch. But my two distinguished colleagues have offered me absolutely nothing positive. Now, why I say that is because you're talking about tiddlywinks. All this little jibber jabber about what Americans did and white supremacists did and means nothing. God created man in his own image and likeness. He said, if you ask me, I'll give you wisdom.
That Bible also tells you, render unto who? Render unto who? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Now, if we lived in a biblical Garden of Eden and we could just celebrate the Lord all day long, I'm quite sure some of us would. But we live in a real world with capitalists and greedy people and people that are hungry and this, that, and other thing. And we sometimes have to step out of our godly pursuits and pursue things of this world.
The brainwashing.
Sometimes that is brainwashing. Sometimes we have to pursue things.
If you get nothing from what I say, remember that the so-called Garden of Eden, okay, that everybody wants to say is an apple, was in the middle of a jungle. Okay? So man was cultivating a small piece of land. And outside the perimeter of that land was lions and tigers.
Bears.
So listen.
I'm listening.
If you are delusional enough to think that talking about a problem, marching and playing tiddlywinks is going to do anything, go to the creator and he'll solve all your problems.
You might be right there, sir. Are we discussing this, or do you that's your opinion? All right, we lost a guest here. I think we offended him, but the point of the matter is, I agree with some of what he said, but we also have to take into account that we live inside the man's world to a degree. We have to use his money, his cars, his gasoline, and have to abide by his laws. Now, slowly but surely, we can try and change those and adjust those, and we can throw our little funk and our mix in with that, but we still have to adhere to rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Well, I also will say that once we chose to look at the depravity of those that came in with nothing but an ideal to kill, steal, and destroy, even from the point that it entered into what he considers the Garden of Eden,
Mm-hmm.
that our people did not get a choice in the God that chose us. We agreed, according to the
Most peoples of Western Africa during this period of time were either Islamic or they were nativists or animists. What is a nativist or an animist? Kind of like what Native Americans believe, that there's a soul and a spirit in everything, and that everything has a purpose, and that we should be adherent to not just the earth, but to our ancestors also. Now, the Europeans say, oh, they ancestor worshiping. Not exactly. But what's the matter with it, with acknowledging your grandmother or acknowledging those who have brought you here?
Even if they have passed on.
Even if they have passed on.
Because their genetics are in you and they speak.
We acknowledge them. We acknowledge ourselves. We acknowledge God that lives within us.
Right. For source of the Creator is all abundant in all things. Because everything was created.
Let's jump back onto the topic, because the ideal of the mission and the goal of this might be to tell us what is needed in the future for our children in an educational system. I would say that number one, we need self-esteem inside that system.
A true sense of self.
Right. True sense of self, self-esteem. When they start talking about what do they call it when they don't want to teach Black history anymore? What's the term for it? They got a special term for it where they don't want to teach history because they don't want white kids developing a complex about all the evils that their forefathers have done. No, we don't want to teach that because it makes white kids feel bad about themselves that their fathers raped and murdered and pillaged and did all this to people.
And I don't.
Critical race theory. That's what they call it.
Because that would never came up in my mind.
Cognitive dissonance. Oh, I saw a good piece on that. You got a lot of people out there saying, we letting all these foreigners in and they don't want to work. And they taking all our jobs too.
They don't want to work, but they're taking all of our jobs.
And you can hear that statement come from many a person. That's that cognitive. America is built on him. There's a saying, hypocrisy is the greatest luxury.
Okay.
When you are the king, when you make the rules, guess what you can do?
You spin the gold.
You can break the rules too.
Yeah.
You can be a hypocrite. You can make a law that says murder is wrong, but then go out and slay a whole group of people. You can go out and commit genocide.
Is that not how America works? Spreading democracy?
When I joined the military, I was gung ho and patriotic. Hold on, let me finish. And I was brainwashed.
Go ahead.
I was brainwashed to a degree because I actually believed, and I still believe in some components of that American ideology, of that 4-year revolution where you can choose your leaders, of that concept where you have an opportunity to advance yourself. Now, that opportunity to advance yourself, it applies to everyone, but not in the same way or not to the same reach. Because sometimes we have to be 3-4 times as good just to make it into the playoffs than somebody who just automatically just gets sent there.
Right. So would you agree that we don't actually elect? They are already pre-selected. And
I would say that the
placed?
Electoral College selects the
Okay.
president.
Okay.
I would say in local elections, we have more power.
Local.
The more locally
Right.
election, the more power we have to make some choices and to make some changes. Right. I think when you start getting to the top of the machine, you got lobbyists involved, and you got this machinery involved that just pushes out the little man and pushes out those small voices. But back to education. We agree that there has to be some kind of sense of self. So we need to throw that critical race theory out the window and start teaching the real history. What happened to the Native Americans? What happened to black folks? What happened to Jews? What happened to whites? Because there were some white folks that say,
all of us.
white folks, we've all been slaves at some point in time in our history.
Right.
I'm like, nah.
Y'all
That
may
don't
have been
quite cut
indentured
it.
service.
Right. And
But
since
even,
the 10th century, they had
only thing you
the Magna Carta protecting them. And you also had the concept of people working together in order to protect each other. Right. Things got weird. Things got different when you had chattel slavery and they were allowed to take blacks. The slavery that blacks experienced was something totally new and different in this world. When the Romans had slaves had a certain number of rights. There were certain things you couldn't do. So you couldn't enslave children. You were born free.
Okay.
Long time ago, there was a man by the name of Cyrus the Great.
Cyrus, yeah.
And you never hear about him. He's actually in the Bible. I can't remember what his name was in the Bible. But Cyrus the Great was the first person to come up with the concept of human rights. And what did Cyrus the Great do? He went out and he conquered the world. And the first thing he did when he conquered the known world, and the known world back then were parts of Egypt, parts of Greece, parts of Rome, that part of
the known world.
Of the known world back then.
Right.
First thing he did, he said, I'm setting all slaves free. If you were born, you have the right to freedom. You have the right to move and make choices of your own. There's these things called human rights. There's 31 of them right now, or 32. It's either 30 or 32 of them right now that you enlist. And freedom is one of them. The right to choose what you do for a living, the right to have a place to live, the right to have a family. You have all these rights. Cyrus the Great respected that, and he said, all slaves free in the world. You get caught having a slave, back then they had special laws.
Okay.
And I'm talking about they wasn't just gouging eyes and cutting off hands. They was laying people to sleep the hard way.
Yeah.
So back to where we are today. Education in America. We know we need a sense of self. We need a complicated and sophisticated curriculum that teaches kids what's new out there. Now, when I go inside of a school and they're still teaching kids wood shop without computers or without a mod or without a computer program, what good is that? Who's still doing that?
Well, still, I see that most education is guarded so that some only get so much. Some get a little bit more. Some can even go to the very top, get their PhDs and so on and so forth. And they're no good for anything.
I would say that if you look back on our history in this country, even during segregation, we've had people like George Washington Carver, Dr. Ralph Bunche, and all these luminaries who are able to achieve in this broken system because they strove and they fought and they did their best in order to become the Dr. Charles Drews,
But
or in order to
who
become
benefited the most from them?
white folks benefit from when
In
we build a
every
computer
aspect,
chip.
in every aspect of our education is geared for them to get the benefit from it.
If we're
From the
smart
lowest,
enough, we get benefit too.
of course,
Now, maybe that
because
benefit is living inside their
and
paradigm.
even some of the accolades that come from overachieving as far as they're concerned. But at the same time, where do we get the knowledge of how we were able to achieve that way? It's from our inner beings that we have already that knowledge.
I think if you give children a sense of self,
Mm-hmm.
that part of that sense of self is going to create a mission where they use knowledge in a way that's going to benefit them, their family, and their people.
Right.
I believe in this concept called Afrofuturism,
Right.
where we have to see ourselves in the future in order to be in the future. And it's not just about painting all the characters in Star Trek black.
No, that
It's
goes.
about creating a world where buildings are shaped like hieroglyphs,
I
or
believe that. I believe that would also include non-Eurocentric thinking from the point of it being entered into your earliest youth. Because I know that, like I said, from eons of time, we were here with all of these knowledges that they have copied, claimed,
Mhm.
and utilized to the extent that they excluded us from them by tearing us from our natural lines of lineage and bloodlines and knowledge that we have had for thousands and thousands of years.
Brother Israel made a point earlier about who's responsible for this. And I made the point that education is not a guaranteed right of the Constitution.
Right.
Who is your first teacher?
My mother.
Your mother, mother, my father, my brothers. Family is the first teachers.
But
We
when
have to hold ourselves accountable.
in the condition of this country, how many families exist?
You still have that mama's love that teaches you X, Y, and Z, or
I was a
teaches you some
foster
basic.
child, but that was broken for me.
Okay, when 90% of the people have mama's love. Let's put it that way.
All right.
A lot of people have that mama's love or some type of cultural love that teaches them the basics. But we also live inside of a Western world where our language has been usurped. Our name has been usurped.
Come on with it.
We learn things. Let me put it to you this way. A lot of people don't even think about how they are brainwashed and how they live inside of a paradigm.
Right.
Let me ask you this question. What's a pinky? No, seriously. What's a pinky?
A person who has their blood showing through their skin.
No, what's a pinky?
That's your little finger.
We call this a pinky, and I was in a meeting the other day. You're going to use your pinky finger to slide over there and talking about trying to do something. I'm like, what if we're born without a pinky? But it's such a part of our mindset and our world that pinky becomes a part of the body that even us black folks have, or we think we have. When you think about color, like if you live inside a certain,
this is the pinky. This is the finger that the pinky ring goes
that's
on.
the pinky ring goes on. And why do they call it a pinky? Because it's a little pink finger.
Yeah.
White folks have a little pink finger. We ain't got no pink finger.
That's why I said the complexion of them.
But it goes deep. If you're an Eskimo, or I'm sorry, Inuit, or somebody that lives inside of a situation where there's lots of snow, you might have 15 different words for snow, and it might be a different type of snow because you know snow that well. If you're a painter, you might know 20 different words for the color blue, because you paint all the time.
And those shades are existing.
The average layperson knows snow. The average layperson knows all the basic colors. How did pink become a basic color? Why is pink? Is there a word for light blue by itself?
No.
But pink gets designated its own color when it's nothing but a combination of red and white. What other color gets that? And why is that? Why, knowing that most of the world has a lot of melanin, why would Johnson & Johnson, for over 70 years, put out these Band-Aids that only match one group of people. And these group of people are a minority in the world. Europeans are a minority in the world, but band-aids are made to match their skin, even though the majority of the world has more melanin or a different type of melanin. They would have made more money or have been geared more towards
I
customers.
don't see where that has anything to do with education.
You know, you don't think that the color of band-aids is
Educational?
I don't know.
I don't
You
need
tell
it.
if I'm going too far, tell me.
Well, I mean, I haven't heard the conclusion.
You ever heard I would say that the color of band-aids was racist. The original making now when they made band-aids originally, they were white. White bandages, wrap them up,
Right.
send them on their way.
Right.
All of a sudden, we're gonna make these match the color of your skin so people won't know you're injured.
Okay, so that means that they covered up the color of the blood by making it pink.
Means that these band-aids were made for a certain reason. Now they got dark band-aids. They got band-aids that'll even match Mr. Mayfield over there. The world has come around.
Okay.
And it's coming to us. But
Okay.
this is the problem though. Somehow, some way, along the way, that Western mindset got so powerful. We lived inside of a Neapolitan world. You had black folks running around Rome or running around Europe. You had white folks running around China. You had Chinese running around here, there, and everywhere else. We keep thinking, and these movies keep showing us these homogenous societies when they never existed until the last 500 years. When you get homogenized society and people being pushed out and them creating these one ethnic group societies. Jews have been roaming around Europe for hundreds and hundreds of years. But whenever you see somebody show England or show Germany or show a movie made inside these areas, you never see Jews depicted
Basically,
or any other ethnic group like gypsies or whatever.
Basically, in America, we were subjugated to an education that put them on the top and excluded us, period.
I don't think they excluded us. I think that they did something that was more insidious than that. They made it so no matter how they shook the dice, we wound up at the bottom. En masse.
Well, when I was doing silhouettes of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and everything else, and I was considering that they were supposed to be a founding father, and where in the line of our lineage did they become a father? Because I only knew my foster father as granddaddy. Now before that, I didn't know his father or none of those people. So maybe,
This is ChessFrog OmniVersity. Call on in. If you got comments on this topic that we're discussing, 248-820-5053. Out of the Mud Incorporated, C Corp, a media company, is sponsoring this show. We appreciate their resources that they're providing to us. Give us a call at 248-820-5053. Chime in on education, the pluses, the minuses, what needs to change, how do we get here, where do we go from here? I know that when I teach my child, I want him to excel and be the best that he can be.
Right.
I teach him multiplication. I teach him reading and writing. I want him to do the best.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of that falls within that curriculum that we're supposed to be hesitant about. But when they start teaching certain things, they're also teaching a hidden curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And that hidden curriculum is white supremacy.
Does that cover, if we know you are a genius, we're going to take you from your environment, from your people and everything else, and we're going to put you somewhere, give you some ability to do accelerated learning, and then we'll use your knowledge and they'll
take the gifted. They'll take the gifted and put them to work.
I mean, just straight take them.
They will take the gifted.
Steal them for that matter. Because
if you own the plantation, let's pretend you're a capitalist.
Okay, hold on. Because I, for one, felt that I was scared. I got straight A's through elementary school. Okay. I mean, and then I got a book called The Boy from Outer Space.
And seemingly, this boy from outer space knew everything about this planet from a knowledge he got from somewhere else. So I kind of like looked at that, and then math is supposed to be the key central to
Universal language, whatever.
all of that. And I was, man, me and math was, but I had to dumb myself down because I got scared.
Well, that's part
And
of the
then I knew
problem,
other
too.
children. I knew other children that seemingly had this genius, and they
Mhm.
displayed it, and they disappeared. So
Well, I
then
think
I find out
what they did in Detroit,
Mhm.
they took the best of the best and they put them inside Cass Tech and Renaissance.
Okay, I'm even.
And
I'm like I said. By that time, I was down in Romulus. First, and maybe the second grade, I was in Detroit.
Mhm.
Things were so chaotic to me. I had moralistic values and this, that, and the other, and I didn't have no idea that people were so, on different levels as far as morality and so on and so forth was concerned. I went told on little girls.
well, you were a child.
Yeah, I went told on little girls for pulling their dress up in the school, showing the little boys their panties.
Mhm.
And that was, as far as math was concerned, or all of the subjects.
She was trying to teach you how to multiply.
But that wasn't part of mine.
It was part of the hidden curriculum.
Okay. Well,
But I would say this: America will take and exploit and use whatever resource they find.
Okay.
They are capitalists first, racists second. They chasing that money,
right,
and they prefer that money to go to their children and their kind.
mm-hmm.
And we are not their children or their kind. But they will exploit us and put us to work for their children and kind.
Now that part, because I wonder how so many got a very astute education.
You know what?
In those times,
we are their children.
Huh?
When you look at our phenotype, our genotype, we are their children. Some of us got brown eyes, blue eyes. Some of us got light skin. Some of us got straight hair. We are the man's children to a degree. Some of us, quite a few of us, we might try and pass that lie on that I got Native American in my family. I got Indian in my family. And a lot of families right now, guess what they're finding out? They go into that DNA test, and not all those DNA tests are lying, and they finding out that they have like 1% Native American blood as opposed to the 25 or 50% that they were told.
Well, Master did what he wanted to do to every last one that he wanted. And when they said the fallen angels came and took wives of all they saw, who you think they were talking about?
So whose children did you say you was?
We are children of white folks also, and black folks.
Of course.
You said we are the children of who?
Of this country. We are the real Americans.
No, I was trying to understand where you was coming from with that.
I'm saying that we are their children. That's we are the children of the masters. Some of us are, or most of us have some blood in us.
Break that down better than what you're saying, because biologically that's impossible.
If Massa was in that woodshed, it's not impossible.
Not impossible.
George,
it's not that it's not that he's dominant. Not that his genes are dominant. Yeah, right, exactly.
It's always going to be a person of color.
Right.
It's going to be the darkest African.
Right. I mean, what did he do? The one drop rule?
There is a picture.
I'm just not saying one drop. I'm saying from one comes all.
There's a picture of George Washington Carver as a child. There's a picture of George Washington Carver as a child standing next to an old man. And guess who George Washington Carver looks just like?
That old man.
Old white slave master. I'm like, there's some blood, and there's no Maury Povich involved here, but you can tell sometimes, like, yeah, that's somebody's baby right there, just like in that movie Life. I'd a pappy.
I get it when you're saying it from that perspective, but I'm thinking you're saying like the origins of humankind.
Oh no!
No.
We like I just said.
I give that to Dinkesh. I give that to Lucy.
Yeah,
Dinkesh are those those bones found in Africa of the original human being
thousands of years before this other degenerate gene took its place and showed up on the scene. Because I still say that everywhere they came from off that ice, everywhere else they saw was paradise, because they didn't have nothing left there to even feed on except their own
Well,
corpses.
some people, and
Except for
this
their
where you
own
get
corpses.
racist. This where you get some wild racist conjecture. Some people would say that the environment, harsh environment, shortage of food, shortage of water, always in fear of wild animals coming after you,
They were scared of the shadows on the wall.
that they developed differently and had a different set of goals. They learned to hoard food and keep it for themselves. They learned how to create a system. Now, if you live inside of an area where everything's abundant, you can just reach up and grab fruit off the trees.
That's
You
what I'm
learn it.
saying.
You learn to share. If you have water, if you live,
We welcomed them with we welcomed them with open arms when they came into our
right. Here's something
environment.
else that I found out, and this is crazy. This sounds crazy, and it's going to be common knowledge in about 10 years. Neanderthals, guess what? We don't have any Neanderthal blood unless
we were not.
we have white blood.
Right.
We were
Neanderthals were a, what do you call them? A ace predator, a prime predator, top of the chart. Humans, Neanderthals, lions, bears, and certain other things were like, hey, we not to be messed with. You see our area, leave us alone. Neanderthals went the way of the saber-toothed tiger and the dodo bird. They eventually died out. But did they just die out? No, they didn't die out. Some of them interbred with Europeans back in the day, and you have a percentage of Europeans today that have Neanderthal blood. Just like you have a percentage.
That's where evolution came in.
You have a percentage of human beings that are related to Khan, to Genghis Khan. Like 1/10 of the world, and most of them are not African.
And same with Hannibal.
So you have people.
Hannibal Barker.
The conqueror Hannibal.
Yeah, Hannibal Barker.
Carthaginian.
Yeah.
The Romans put him on their coins. Brother,
with the elephants.
They came over the mountains and snuck up on us. How you sneak up on somebody with elephants?
Yeah.
So based on what I was listening to what y'all saying, but based on what you may listen to or read as far as what's considered scripture or ancient text or whatever, so it's can be translated that the origins of mankind, human beings, people, all whatever different terms were called,
including knowledge,
was something that was scientifically done, that were science experiments. You know, if you take the Sumerian text and mix it with
I like the Tower of Babel text that we were one people that were divided eventually, and that makes sense with the spreading of humans across
the story
the
of Gilgamesh and stuff like that. I get that, but it depends on how you're doing. But in my viewpoint, it's like all origin stories, and that I have looked at, and then just the line of story that where they go is all chaotic. It's all chaotic. There's a death in there. There's controversy in there. There's all kinds of things that aren't.
If you're looking for the truth, you go to a club, somebody got shot. You got 50 patrons in there, guess what you're going to get?
50 different stories.
50 different stories.
Yeah.
The same thing is true with history.
Understood, but all religions
spoken of in the
is chaos.
It has to be. Without that chaos, there's no measure or room for people to adjust.
So then where...
Who was it that was stating that God hovered above the waters and below all the waters were chaos? Who was speaking then? Evidently, he had to be at peace to be able to speak about the chaos.
In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was.
Right.
I hear you.
With God, and the Word
interesting
was
to
God.
me how we're told to be peaceful, told to have, to live a good life and righteous and all this other stuff.
But and is that put
everything there? Everything that creates power and control and access to resources is
not that way.
Is chaos. You have to create chaos in order to get control.
I mentioned earlier the Black Bible. And the Black Bible was a Bible that was edited by white folks and given directly. Said this is the only thing they need to know. They need to know to be beholden to their masters and to be righteous and to be good Christians. They don't need to know about the Jews and their fight with slavery. They don't need to know about God loving everybody equally and creating a little shortened edition of the Bible. Now, if I take an American history book and just pick out the stuff that I want, I can create a new Nazi Germany and pick out the stuff that I want or to exclude certain things. I can do that critical race theory, exclude certain things, build up certain people, and then I have a Fourth Reich going on.
Yeah, I ran across a little blue book called The History of America, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And in the very first page, it said this land was discovered, and it was spacious. It was full of all of nature's bounty and all of this, that, and a few red men.
That's not true.
I know it wasn't true, but that's. I mean, I ran across.
We got to wrap this up soon.
I ran across this book, and this book was put in elementary school for white people. When we weren't learning to read at all.
We're running out of time here. I'm going to make this statement because I stand by it. I believe in it. I think one of the most important things parents can do to help their children out is be involved with their education. And some of us will say, well, I'm not educated. I don't even know how to do multiplication, this, that, and other thing. There's a book out there called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. And at the right age, that book will make an impression on any and all Black people. I think it's best to teach it to middle school boys so they can develop that self-esteem as they're developing their manhood, so they can have an understanding about why they like light-skinned people over dark-skinned people, or why this is this way and this is that way in America. I think it's one of the most important books, and it should be taught in middle school.
And also
that's how I would change. Definitely change what they
find the meaning of words so they can be used in their proper context and denote what people are saying.
You're saying dictionary skills are important.
Dictionary skills are very important. Had it not been for that, Malcolm X would not have been Malcolm X.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I have a love of words also, and I was a smart kid. I'm one of those kids that always passed all the standardized tests because it wasn't nothing regurgitated.
Okay.
I became literate though. I knew how to read, but didn't like reading. The way I became literate was by studying words and by writing. I used to write poetry every day to this girl and that girl. I used to have two or three girls, player.
Made them swoon through the vibrations,
with the power of words.
Right.
But
I consider myself having very astute vernacular because I wanted to know the meaning of certain words and how they compiled so many things into one word to have all of those meanings. And
another
then a word has more than one
I
meaning.
think every child should have is a second language.
Wow.
That would be a powerful thing, whether they learn how to speak Spanish, whether they learn how to speak Arabic,
all of that.
Farsi.
Right.
To have a second language gives you a different appreciation and different perspective of the world. Because that word pink might not appear in Kiswahili.
Right.
They might say light red.
Right.
Or reddish white, but they're not going to say pink. So there are certain things that we want inside of our children's education. I would say that the whole thing needs to be stripped down and rebuilt from ground zero. I would say don't even start with a build. Let's start with a group of kids and a group of adults with some knowledge that they want to share and go from there.
Because we can learn from our children.
We can learn from our children. We can learn. We don't need to have a building in order to learn.
Now you're basing all this based on the system we live under right now, right?
System we live under right now is doing more to brainwash our children and brainwash other people's children and make people not able to challenge the powers that be. There should be people challenging everything that comes out of a politician's mouth, whether they are Democratic or Republican. But we don't provide people with the education to do that. We provide them with the fear that if they do that, they're going to get in trouble.
Uh-huh.
We are creating a
can't question
society.
anything. We can't question anything.
Another important book to look at is a book called The Time Machine. And I think that original book describes the breakdown of society when you get certain group of people that become the elites or the Eloi, and then certain other people become the Morlocks. And the Morlocks become
Oh,
food.
okay.
Morlocks become food for the Eloi, but they all started out as the same people.
Right.
And right now, America eats its young. We are all fat, horny, and strung out. And on that note,
We'll
I
let
want to
that
thank
go.
Mr. Daru. You got any final words for us, Mr. Daru, to send us off with? On education?
Still, with all you're getting, get an understanding. And with that understanding, educate yourself.
Repeat that one more again.
Say, with all you're getting, get an understanding. And with that understanding, educate yourself.
Here, here. We're going to leave with a poem. And this poem right here is called The Ballad of Persecutine. Master Theo Presser ran after hearing the words said, words to a song and plan, sung by slaves in the woodshed. They call me persecuted. I helped build this damnation, not by choice, which is odd, reading his declaration. My true name is forgotten. My name is not slave or nigger. My hands farmed and picked cotton, while his held whips and triggers. I got the fruit that was rotten. He got the fruits of my labor. Labor of bearing children who were sold to his neighbor. His name is Theo Presser, a name he hides with titles. He's not my lord or master. He's not my god or idol. He and I are both human. The difference is I'm dark. He's got a whip that threatens. These words, like my back, are marked. It's true like coal I am dark. Like coal, I too can ignite. Soon his whip will act as a spark, and he'll see my fury, my light. They call me persecuted. They call him the oppressor. His ways have been refuted, and soon I'll be called aggressor. Against any rule that states skin color is damnation, against all rules that forsake my children's generation. Where we going right there? I'm off the screen. One time, two times. Who that guy with the braids? Pretty man right there. They don't make him that pretty no more. Thank you all for showing up, being on. We'll be seeing you again next week. Mr. Daru, will you be joining us again next week?
Oh, more than likely.
More than likely. I got to find a topic that works, though. Send us in comments and thoughts about topics for future shows, people. I want to do that movie one, but I'll wait till you ain't here.
I'll give you that one.
Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Grundy, for your